Hi everyone, nice to see you all again this week. As I said last time, if you do have pen and paper handy when we're going through the CBT, it's really helpful so you can write down some of the things that we're talking about and you can try some out as we're going through. Today I wanted to talk about worry, and what I'd like to do is use a case study of somebody who found the Managing Worry program within the Silvercloud program really helpful. The worry program is part of the anxiety program in Silvercloud. And the lady who came to see me chose the blended method where you work with the helper. So I was this lady's helper as she was going through the worry program. I'll use a different name for the person so we don't breach confidentiality. And I'll use the name Mel for the lady. Mel tried the Silvercloud because she was a real worrier. Her worrying was getting out of control, and the more she was worrying, then the worse she was feeling. She was caught really in like a vicious cycle of overthinking. She was worrying and then worrying about worrying. Her GP recommended that she tried CBT before she tried medication. When she started coming to see me, she was having all the physical symptoms of worrying that show themselves, which I'm sure many of you watching this are familiar with, such as a racing heart, like a dodgy stomach. She couldn't settle and she felt on edge much of the time. She described her worry as if it was like coming out of nowhere, and it had become such a habit that it just started up every day. As soon as she woke up, she noticed she was starting to worry. And when she came to Silvercloud CBT, she didn't know where to start. All she'd been doing before she saw me was distracting herself, but her worrying kept coming back. So what I did with Mel is I started to explore where worry comes from. And if you go into the Silvercloud program, it'll explain it step by step and explains where worry starts and what you can do about it. Now, what I'd like to tell you is, which I'm sure you all know already, is that worry comes from overthinking. And Mel was doing a lot of unchecked thinking, leading to excessive worry. Now, a wise friend of mine called Kim, she explains in a little chart that we're just going to put up for you now about your thoughts per minute. And she explains how many thoughts we have per minute and what that means about stress and worry. So say we're only having a few thoughts per minute. We have like deep wisdom, beautiful feelings. We feel good. We feel relaxed. And as our thought count starts to increase, so on the screen here, you can see if you have between 50 and 100 thoughts a minute, you're not too bad. You're feeling quite good. But as the thoughts escalate and you have 100 to 200 thoughts, you start to experience mild stress. Your thinking is starting to race. By the time you get to 200 or 300 thoughts, you're starting to spin out of control. And over 300 thoughts per minute, which sounds like a huge amount, and you think, God, that can't be possible. But it really is possible. People have this amount of thinking going on throughout the day, and that amount of thinking per minute leads to extreme stress. So we'll take that slide away now, and I'll just go back. Here I am again. So what Mel and I did was we started to explore the worry thoughts that she was having when she came to see me. I don't know if you can see that, but this is a thought diary that we used, and this thought diary is built into the Silvercloud program. And the thought diary is a really useful way to record what's going on in your head, and it gives you a chance to see what you're actually thinking in black and white. So Mel hadn't realized that her thinking was contributing to how she felt. She just thought she felt worried, she felt anxious. She didn't realize that the worry, was coming from thinking. She thought it was coming out of nowhere. She thought she woke up and she just felt worried. But actually, when we started to look through and we used the thought diary, we were able to look at all the kinds of thoughts that were in her diary. Another way of doing this is to use a worry bucket. I've got a worry bucket here. And what some people do, especially when they were working with children, or say you have children in your family and they worry a lot, because a lot of children are concerned about exams at the moment and school, missing school, going back to school. So you can put your worries in a bucket and then you can take them out and you can start looking at them one by one. I've got a few here, and these were a few that Mel used in her worry bucket. One was her partner's health. Another one was keeping the whole show on the road for the family. Another one of hers was money. Money, always a worry. And there's in Silvercloud, there's a specific program for money worries, which we can look at another week. Children, another one. So all those worries they were in Mel's worry bucket. And we've all got a worry bucket like that. But the main thing to realize is that you have a choice. When you know that you've got a lot of worries in your head, get them out. Use a worry bucket, use a thought diary, try and use something to stop. So as soon as you realize you've got a choice, you can start practically problem solving some of the worries then, because when they're just in your head or in your bucket, you can't really deal with them. So Mel really started to realize that she was feeling what was on her mind when she started talking to me. And what she'd been doing is she'd been focusing on how she felt, and this was really uncomfortable. So she tried to get away from that feeling, and she spent all her time up in her head, and she was adding more and more thinking to the anxious pile of thoughts that was already there. Many of us think that by worrying about something, that you're doing something about the problem, because you are going through different scenarios in your head. But worrying is not problem solving. Worrying is just thinking about possible things that could go wrong. It's a habit that many of us get into. I've got another little quote here that we're just going to put up on the screen now. If you can see that. Worry is one step we take to try and address a problem in our lives. Worrying too much is problem solving without actually solving the problem. We visualize all sorts of possible problems. We think about lots of negative outcomes, but we don't take action to put any solutions in place. And that's the key with CBT. Action, taking action. You have an active choice to change how you are. If you're doing a lot of thinking and your thoughts per minute are really high, you're doing a lot of those, we need to do something about it. So practical problem solving is really, really important. With Mel, how we approached it was we started working through her worry tree. So we began to help her make the switch from being a habitual worrier to a problem solving thinker. The first few times she came to see me, we focused mostly on worries, and we were talking about her worries. But as the weeks went on, we started to problem solve. So Mel wrote down her main worry. She picked several, but we put one of the most difficult things for her in the worry tree. Hers was around parents and keeping everyone happy during the COVID crisis, conflicting priorities. We began by looking and identifying the worry. Then we asked the things she could do. Could she do anything about it? She didn't think she could, but we decided that we'd try and brainstorm between us. And we brainstormed about 10 different solutions and we wrote them down. Then, as we followed the worry tree format that's in Silvercloud, we decided, could she do anything about any of them now? So that's the first thing you do. You brainstorm, you have your solutions, and you think, okay, I'm going to choose to do something now. And you pick one, okay? So she picked one and she said that she was going to try and communicate how she felt and ask for help from her family instead of moaning that no one else was doing everything. So what we did about that, we role played the situation in our session together, and we practiced what she might say until it felt really natural for her to say it. So instead of her going home and saying, why hasn't anyone taken the washing out of the machine? Why hasn't anyone got anything for tea? She got home and said, okay, guys, what are we going to plan? They planned their meals, or they were going to eat in the week before. Some of the kids went out to do some of the shopping. They had designed a rota, and somebody took the washing out of the machine. And she just got people on side. Whereas previously, she was just worrying about it all, and she didn't practically problem solve. And these things started to make a difference for Mel. One of the things that she was concerned about, however, was she thought, they're going to do all of this stuff. They're going to go shopping. They're going to nip to Aldi, Tesco, and they're going to get what we need. But then they're going to go back to their old habits. So I reminded Mel about the circle of control. Now, this is something that's in the Silvercloud program. I'm just going to put it up for you. Where is it? So here it is. Can you see the circle of control? And it shows you some of the things that you can control and some of the things you can't. And it's really useful to remember this, because we can't control how everyone else is going to behave. We can only control what we do. But we can make the way that we approach other people and work with them a lot easier for them, so that it makes everything flow a lot more easily. So this is a great little example of focusing again on your own reactions, your own behavior, and not focusing on their behavior, and just encouragement. And Silvercloud has got some great examples of that, and the whole control diagram in the program, and loads of things like this that you can use, and that you'll find hopefully really helpful. So let's take that off there. Yeah, so the key thing then is to remember, if I just take that away, the key thing to remember is that CBT is a strategy. It's a way of doing things. I mean, Mel said to me towards the end of one of the sessions that she'd been so much in her head that she'd sort of lost contact with her senses, with her physical senses. She hadn't seen the birds, she hadn't noticed things. When she was out for a walk around the lake, she was so busy thinking that she wasn't aware of, bird song and children feeding ducks. She'd missed it all. She was completely in her head. And she'd come right back down into being able to relax enough, because she was practically worry solving. She wasn't just a worry thinker anymore. She was a worry problem solving thinker. So as soon as she noticed she was worrying, she started using her problem solving methods, which for her worry tree was really, really useful. And she said at the end of the sessions that she's carried this on now, and she's still using the program and finding it helpful, and she's gone into the financial worry planning program, and she's using that. So there's a lot more to the techniques within the Silvercloud program. There's different techniques for worry and health that you can look into. So I hope that's been useful today. Just have a look at somebody who has been using the program, and we'll look at a different topic next week, and perhaps my colleague Jenny may be talking to you about that. I hope you all have a really great worry-free week. And if you do worry, remember, just choose to practically problem solve. Don't carry all your worries round in your bucket. Get them out, have a look at them. What can you sort out? Can we practically problem solve some of those? And the ones that we can't problem solve, we'll talk about those actually a bit more in more detail next week, about the things that are really difficult to sort out. Well, I hope that's been useful, and I'll see you again next time. Thank you.